Sexual assault on college campuses has been a topic that has garnered a lot of attention both locally and nationally. We have seen cases such as the Brock Turner case that has stunned the nation, Yale's Delta Kappa Epsilon fraternity, which was banned from Yale campus due to its members chanting about raping women, even here at the University of Nevada, Reno, where the Tau Kappa Epsilon fraternity faced scrutiny over leaked documents that show lyrics made by members of sexually assaulting other sorority members. Cases like these have been given more attention now more than ever, due in parts because of the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement has allowed for victims to feel more empowered, safe, and has given them the resources in order for them to come forward with their cases, although this has not always been the case. Again, one of the differences between now and a couple decades before was because of the political climate and the cultural shifts. For example, right now, the Me Too movement era has allowed for victims again to feel more empowered, more safe, and resources. A couple decades ago, that wasn't the case. A couple decades ago, sexual assault was seen as something more than a mere issue to be brushed aside or something to be tucked under the rug. And in college campuses, sexual assault was seen as something not even to be talked about, and it wasn't until 1957 that the first ever study done about sexual assault on college campuses was made. Although the study itself didn't even take the issue of sexual assault seriously. One of the reasons why the study states it was made was because it was prompted by some case material reporting instances of violent male aggression with reluctance on the part of offended girls. The phrase offended girls shows throughout the whole study repeatedly, showing again how the issue itself wasn't taken seriously. And it wasn't until 3 decades later, in 1985, it was done by the Kent State University in Ohio, took the issue more seriously and looked at it more broadly. And it wasn't until this past decade in 2011 where the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights decided to step in and implement Title IX measures, which makes it a requirement for colleges and universities throughout the nation to make it their priority to stop sexual assault on their college campuses. And it wasn't until 5 years ago where the White House itself decided to step in and implement measures and a task force to prevent students from being sexually assaulted. Besides not giving the proper research and attention it has needed in the past, another major issue plaguing sexual assault consistently is the fact it's so hard to define. Every state has its own different definition. Every college and university has its own separate definition of what sexual assault is, which makes it harder for the victim's perpetrators to be charged with anything at all. Which leads us to where we are right now. What exactly is sexual assault, and why does it still exist? And finally, how could we combat the issue?
Sexual assault is legally defined, and so in addition to our definition in a policy, it's also defined by every state. It's defined by federal law. And interestingly enough, all the states do not define it the same. But of course, here we're not applying the law for our cases. We're actually looking at policy. We apply the broader laws, obviously, like Title IX. Yeah, I would say I think it's an issue in our society as a whole, and I think we've been seeing it, especially now. Post Me Too era, I think it kind of gave us a broader sense of exactly how widespread this issue is. I think for sexual harassment and sexual assault, we probably had, I want to say, around 50 cases reported. Obviously, we don't believe that everyone reports, so it is quite possible that the number is not accurate of what's actually occurring, but I want to say it was around 50 cases. Some people don't report because they don't, they don't want. We've heard people that'll say, "Well, I didn't want a huge investigation, so that's why I never came forward to you," and so they may not understand fully the process. Because, as I mentioned before, we don't have to do an investigation. And so they could still report and get some resources and that sort of thing. So some people may not realize that, and they may refrain from reporting for that reason. Others, again, because of their healing process, they're not to the point where they can report. I think that reason is personal to different people. I've just heard so many over the years of why they don't. Everyone has to make the decision that's best for them. And that's what we encourage people to do, do what's best for you. Of course, in that, we want them to take care of themselves. So that may not look like reporting, that may be going to receive counseling or something. And that's what we encourage people to do, get the help that you need, whatever that help looks like.